You all ready to join me today in our trip to outer space?
Yeah.
Albert Shivers.
The Matrix doesn't have him.
That's very true.
Come along quietly or not.
Goodbye, Willis.
As I was about to try to bribe
From Albert
the
Shivers.
mistress of the fading light.
They don't have to like it.
They're trying to put a caravan.
The general concept is that creativity flourishes in an atmosphere of freedom.
Hello, folks, and welcome to another episode of the Planet Shivers podcast. I am Albert Shivers, and on this episode, we have a grassroots podcast about a grassroots film about a grassroots racing family, and that's particularly right up my alley. On this episode, I speak with Allegra Denroff. Her, along with her husband Jeff Kaminsky, are creating a film about the 1950s, NASCAR, and the Flock family. So I don't want to take up too much time before we get into the conversation. I just want to hit you with some facts about the Flocks that'll sort of help you as you listen to us talk about it. Because both Allegra and I are well versed in what we're talking about. So I just want to fill you guys in a little bit on who this family was with a little more detail. First off, Tim Flock, who was the most accomplished racer of the family, he won 2 NASCAR championships and 39 NASCAR races. His championships came in 1952 and 1955. His brother Fonty Flock, who was famous for always wearing shorts in the race car, and again, this is the 1950s. There are no rules like there were today. You basically just, guys and a handful of women, which we'll get to, who just wanted to race. This is post-World War II. There's a lot of guys who were mechanics in the war who came back, and especially down south, they were running a lot of shine, and they were experts at working on cars. I'll go into it on another podcast, but there's a fantastic story about Wendell Scott, who was the first black NASCAR driver to win a race back in 1962 or 3, and he ran shine, and there was some great lore and stories about him and his cars. It was all about outrunning the police, and eventually one guy says to another guy, "My car's faster than yours." "No, mine is." "No, mine is." And slowly NASCAR was born on the beaches of Daytona. Anyway, so you got Tim Flock, 2-time champion, 39 wins. Fonty Flock had 19 wins. Their brother Bob Flock won 4 NASCAR races, and their sister Ethel also raced. She was one of the first female drivers in NASCAR, along with another woman who raced back then named Sarah Christensen. And although Ethel never won a race, she was able to brag that at one of the Daytona beach course races, she beat both her brother Fonty and Bob in that race. And the Daytona beach races were run before the real Daytona International Speedway was built. They would run on the beach. It was half beach course, half street course. They'd tear ass down the beach. I forget the distance, but it was a very long track. I want to say that it was close to 2 miles, if my memory is right. They would tear ass down the beaches, make a very sharp turn, almost like a Martinsville Speedway turn, make a very sharp turn, and then shoot down a street. I cannot recall the name of the street. Shoot down the street, make another hairpin turn, and shoot back down the beach. The sands of this particular beach were good enough that it didn't really tear up too much, even with the amount of cars they had running. More importantly than all these statistics and facts is just how much this particular family contributed to the sport in its very early days. You think about other sports that are started in the late 1800s or early 1900s in America. NASCAR is almost the newest. NASCAR's first season was in 1948, And the history, even though it's new, the history is so dense and so rich. From the cars to the drivers, just full of characters. All the way up to Bill France Sr., who was the creator of NASCAR. It all is so interesting to me. And I remember when I first got into racing, just how mind-blowing it was to see these big, boaty, steel 1950s cars ripping around dirt tracks, and then eventually ripping around giant paved tracks as the sport got more and more popular. It's so interesting, and I can go on and on. I could do a whole 2-hour podcast just talking to you guys about history. I'm trying to condense it here, so I hope I don't come off too disjointed. The rest of the stories and things I'm going to save for our conversation, myself and Allegra. She had all kinds of things to share about the flocks. Her and Jeff's dedication to this project is so cool. There have been, we talked about it in our conversation, that there have been attempts to make this film all the way up from big Hollywood to other folks, and it just never quite worked out. And I'm very excited to see the progress and how it's working out for Allegra and Jeff. They definitely have an extreme passion for it, and I'm real glad it's working out for them. And I'm excited to see where it's going, because they're approaching it with all the right things. And I really wish them a lot of success with it. So I'm not going to jabber anymore. Last thing I'm going to say is you can check out what I'm up to with art and such. I have a brand new large painting coming up, and a painting with Louis Armstrong, another Louis Armstrong painting. I was very inspired by the recent Verve release of Louis in London, which was one of, if not his last live performance. Armstrong had been recently cleared by the doctors to perform live. He didn't do much trumpet playing, but the historical significance of one of the most influential musicians in American history's last performance is pretty moving, I gotta say. I got the record not too long ago, listened to it while I was painting the silhouette portrait of Louis, and immediately started it back from the beginning. So that has been a great deal of inspiration lately. But I'll be posting my art progress. You can follow what I'm up to on Instagram at Albert Shivers, or on the website at www.albertshivers.com, which is in desperate need of updating, but I'm going to get to that. Hopefully by the time this is out, you can go to the website, see what new stuff is going on. And beyond that, I want to again thank Allegra for coming on the show to talk about this fantastic film, which will be titled The Fabulous Flocks. I hope you enjoy this episode. Go down below, check out links if you'd be interested in helping Allegra and Jeff produce this film. They're going to be doing a crowdfunding. There's all kinds of social media on Instagram and Facebook. Go on Facebook, find the Facebook group, The Fabulous Flocks. You can do the same thing on Instagram. Go support them. The more people we can get behind this film, the better. And like I said in the beginning, how fitting that a grassroots sport with a grassroots family who came from the bottom up to make such an impact on NASCAR is now being honored by a grassroots film effort. You know, nowadays, the big guys, they're losing faith. They're losing face. And they're losing their strength and their pull. It's all going to come down to us little artists who are out there making things because of passion, not entirely because of money. Money, not going to lie, the money is good, the flow, it helps. But passion needs to drive the arts again. We've lost it, but we might be coming back to it. All right, I'm going to shut up now. Enjoy the podcast, and I'll catch you on the other side of it.
This is Brooklyn's own station, WBBC, Brooklyn, New York.
It's the Polaroid Kmart U.S. All-Pro Funny Car Championship. 32 funny cars. See the wild burnout contest with the world's fastest funny car, John Brute Force, defending champion, the Black Magic. A funny car tug of war right on the track. See all the funny cars fire up at the same time, California style, including 4 jet cars side by side. Sunday afternoon at 2 o'clock at Old Bridge Township Raceway Park near Englishtown, New Jersey.
Alright folks, welcome to the Planet Shivers podcast. I am, as I've always been, Albert Shivers, and I'm very, very excited on this episode to have Allegra Denroff, who is the producer and costume designer of the new short film coming out about the Flock family. The name of the film is The Fabulous Flocks. Allegra, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Albert. It's nice to talk with you.
Yeah, same here. So let's jump right in. And so your husband, Jeff, is the producer, writer, and director of the film. So you guys are working on this as a team. What got you both interested enough in the history and the Flock family to make you want to go full on and make a film about it?
Okay, well, I like to say it started at Thanksgiving 2019.
Okay.
And is a known prankster, and he calls April Fool's Day amateur hour. If that gives you some idea. So when we were sitting around, and he suddenly just says, "Oh, my family started NASCAR." I really just didn't flat out said he was lying and didn't believe him. And then he's like, "No, really." And my uncle raced with a monkey named Jocko Flocko, and I'm like, really? Like, okay, monkey, right? So, but quick Google search, Jocko was real, the family was real. I was so excited because not only like there was Bob Flock, Tim Flock, and Fonnie Flock, but there was also Ethel Flock that raced. She was the second woman driver ever, and of course Jocko was real, come to find out. And not only that, but it was a whole daredevil streak in the family. They had an older sister who died of tuberculosis. She was a wing walker in the 20s, and also their father, who had died previously, he was a genius mechanic, inventor, and daredevil himself. So I just was, from then on, I said, "Jeff, you have to do something with this, like, TV show." So I guess that's what started the process, really.
Gotcha. And having it be a timepiece is definitely a big undertaking.
It's a lot. I mean, we're being very ambitious because, most short films have a budget. Most indie short films that are self-funded are like $12,000 range. We kind of spent that in one day. Okay. So and even then we had a lot of like in-kind donations of like, we were able to get some cars from a museum. It was very generous, and a lot of people donated services, but having it period specific is very ambitious. We're very aware. It's also a lot of fun.
I could imagine, yeah.
Yeah, we're a bit crazy, and we already shot the first opening scene, the first 2 scenes taking place in 1955, and then we're raising money to film the rest, which takes place in the 1920s, and it should be really fun.
Cool. Does the film focus on anything in particular about the Flock family, or is it more of an overview of the family?
Well, to go back to its history, Jeff wrote originally, so this project has been going on for 5 years. So Jeff started out with a hour pilot script because he was thinking, like, there's so many stories in this family that it should be a TV show. So he wrote an hour pilot. It went around to a lot of different screenwriting contests across the country. It won awards. But then we were like, okay, it won awards. Then what?
Right.
So years go by, and a year ago we decided let's I feel like there's enough momentum, like NASCAR history fans and NASCAR, to kind of gain the attention that we need to pull off an independent short film, which is like a lot of people don't realize is you need a community, and you need people to be excited about what you're doing. So the script got shorter and shorter, and I mean, I think if any filmmaker who's been in the festival circuit, is that if you have like a pilot, it's not really gonna like play at film festivals. So we shortened it, and now it's at like 19 minutes, but it might even get shorter depending on the budget and our time frame. So it focuses, back to your question, it focuses on the moment. So it was an hour long, and we've focused it more on the moment in time when Carl Flock, the eldest Flock child, decides to run moonshine in order to feed his family.
Okay.
And it's a very conflicting moment because I think like what a lot of people don't realize is like today, it's only been in the past 20 years that it's been like kind of common knowledge that NASCAR started because of moonshiners and running, but it was actually pretty secret. I think, right. I'm not sure if you're, I'm sure you're aware, but
and there were some drivers from that time that wouldn't even admit to it as they got older. You know, I always found it funny, and I'm sure you've stumbled across this as you've done the research. So Richard Petty, his father Lee Petty, never would quite admit that they ran Shine, but most of that first generation of drivers of the series came out of that, if not for the drivers or the knowledge of cars to make them look slower, but when they needed to outrun the law, they could.
Right, and there's a lot of like shame about it. And not only that, because like in the South, it's a very like Bible Belt. It's a very religious area. It's like kind of contradictory, so I don't even think like, because Jeff, my husband, is that Tim Flock is his great granduncle. So I don't even think like in the family it was very like, I don't even think Jeff's grandma liked to talk about this. So I think the purpose of the film in my mind is to show, and this is something I've been grappling with, as I've produced this and in conversation with Jeff is, Tim Flock has said, our family was, Christian, very good, a lot of values. We never hurt anybody. I think it personally shows that people will do what they have to in order to survive. So I think it has a lot of meaning for me. And I hope that in some way can have, I think it explores some of the, I don't know, maybe it explores some of the, why people get into illegal activity a little bit. And maybe we need to not make assumptions about why people do the things they do. I mean, without being too controversial.
No, I hear you. From the point of view of the costume design, talk to me a little bit about that process of finding period correct costumes and what all that entails for a film.
So I had a lot of fun. I mean, it was not an understatement, but let me think. Yeah, so it started, I did a lot of screenshots of actual races. Well, there's like a lot of different things to consider when doing a race in 1955, which my husband just wrote it, and he's like, oh, it's a race, just put everybody in white t-shirts and whatnot. And I'm like, wait a second. no, this is this is going to be really a lot because so I had to pick apart. I had to screenshot YouTube videos and old footage of NASCAR races and like pick apart what everybody was wearing because even in the crowd there is like, okay, you know, you see like there's the young teenage, because this was the 50s post-war. There's like a lot of like, okay, there's the youth, like, because there's a lot of baby boomers and youth culture, have like a lot of teenagers, and there were some families, but it was a lot of men, and so like picking apart the crowd was very interesting, and then also like the pit crew, the drivers, and even like, I love it. I wish we had more of a budget, but I don't know if you've ever seen these like really cool red NASCAR 50s bomber jackets.
Yes. Yeah.
I kind of want one. I
yeah,
wish
those are awesome.
Because they were like, there are these like, I think they were the jackets that the drivers wore if they won something, won a race. I think, I don't know if any historians later listen to this and like they can correct me, but it has the red jacket, and then on the back I noticed through my research with the screenshotting, on the back of them they had these like the cool old NASCAR logo with the, it's like a very Art Deco, I guess it was like made in the 40s, which is still technically Art Deco, but it had the Art Deco logo on the back, and I'm like, I want to reproduce these, and like, NASCAR, please make these again and like sell them because I will buy it.
Yeah, so would I. Yeah, those original logos were awesome.
Yeah, I mean, as an artist, you might appreciate, and also the trophy design. I mean, maybe you as an artist, the trophy design was incredibly cool.
Yeah.
I feel like someone should do a whole blog post on that because, like, it's just, they're like works of art. But anyway, so back to costumes. The drivers, I had to look at a lot of like Tim Flock, and I went to the Georgia Racing Hall of Fame. And we have a great relationship with some people there, and I went to them, and I saw that a lot of the racing outfits from the 50s, especially, were very lightweight. They were like boiler suits, kind of like what do they call them? You know, they were like one, you know, all in one. But the thing is that they have very baggy pants. They were like a little different from the utility suits that you would see today.
Right.
So it'd be like these utility suits that you would see today are like very heavy and like they're made out of denim, whereas these were made out of like, I don't know, stuff like a lightweight cotton.
Okay. And
you just, I just didn't have the resources or the time to reproduce that. So even though like I think when we were filming by 1955, we had to I had to like kind of take some creative license and go like a few years before, because what like people don't realize is like it was very improvised. Like even their what they wore, like their helmets, like safety, like I mean, this is like kind of the thrilling part. And maybe Albert, like this is what you like about early NASCAR is like anybody could do it, like anybody, men, women. There were like anybody with a car could do it, which is what I think is so cool. And also, but like the safety of it all is like a little hairy.
Right. Yeah, they were regular folks. You know, they were mostly regular folks.
Yeah.
Like no frills, no like spit shine on any of it, and that's a lot of fun to me too.
Like I think there were literally drivers that just took their car and like painted with soap like a number and raced.
Yep.
And I mean that's like how like a monkey could, you know, Jocko could race. Yeah. But I think that's like part of my love for the early days of stock car racing. And also I'm not a sports fan, but I feel like it's so amazing, and like it's just like, why hasn't anything been made about this? And I'll digress, but
No, well, I know what you're saying, because to me, like, there's an unlimited amount of aesthetics to it that are interesting and thrilling, from the people and the characters that were doing this back then is so interesting. And then you have the racetracks they raced on, which was anything from horse tracks, motorcycle tracks that they were going to use, or just tracks that were dug out in somebody's field. And then just the cars themselves, these behemoths of steel that they had to wrestle around these dirt tracks. Like, there's so much in it that is so interesting.
Yeah, so the drivers' costumes are outfits. So I think they wore a lot of white because it's like kind of a grim reason, but I think that I've heard is they wore white because if anyone got injured, I think the blood would show would show up very easily. Like they know, oh no, like they really are in trouble. So I had to keep it white, and then like I had a lot of fun. Someone from so the car we used is from the for the shoot is from the Georgia Racing Hall of Fame. And it's a reproduction of the Chrysler 300 car that Tim drove in the 50s, like the mid-50s. And it was like a revolutionary car at the time. I think technically it was. And so I had, and the sponsor behind the car was actually what is today Mercury Outboard Motors, which at first no idea what this company was. Like Mercury is not a car company. I look it up, and I'm not a boating person, but it's a boat motor company. And they were started by a man named Carl Kiekhaefer, and the company is doing very well today. But they were a major sponsor of the Flocks in the 50s, and they invested a lot of money. And I actually talked to someone whose dad was a part of the team that helped Tim and all them. It was very interesting. So I rushed. It was a funny story because I really wanted to have the Kiekhaefer company in the Mercury Outboard Motors a part of the costume. So it was like kind of very last minute, but like I had a patch made because they didn't. This was like this is interesting too. This was the very beginning of corporate sponsorship. Also like Kiekhaefer and Mercury Outboard Motors, and also I think there was another company that I'm blanking out on, but there were some early companies. I rushed to like get this patch made and spent like a lot, like hundreds of dollars. If anyone wants to know what costume designers do, is like, okay, how do I find this patch? eBay, I sent it off to the embroiderers, and then like it was like the very last minute thing I had to do. I like rushed through Atlanta traffic. Like I had to go from the costume rental house to the other side of Atlanta, like right before they closed on a Friday, before we shot on a Saturday. So it's just really chaotic. But I got the patch made. It's this beautiful, like I actually love the design of the patch. I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I went through the trouble.
Oh yeah, all those small details matter so much.
Yeah, because
really
I
do.
thought his costume, it also has his name embroidered, and so it's kind of a hodgepodge of different. I'd say like from 1950 to 1955. It's kind of I'm like fudging it a little bit, but it's like some design choices. But I don't know if any audience members would, unless you're like a diehard historian, you know for sure. Which I guess I'm kind of breaking my own rules, because when I watch historical movies, I'll be like, because I'm like a fashion history expert, I'm like, that wouldn't be right. But then, like when you're on the other side of it, you understand why you take liberties.
So talk to me a little bit about some of the actors in the film, the casting. I seen on your Instagram page a little bit of a profile on the actor who's playing Tim Flock, as well as the actor who's playing his rival driver, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah. So, as I said before, like, when Jeff wrote the script, it was very, like, and even, like, to me as a designer, he's like, oh, it's a race.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of have, like, when it actually gets to the nitty gritty of, like, what you're going to shoot and what the actors are going to do, you have to, like, get more specific as filmmakers. So, I talked, it's discussions with Jeff. So, like, okay, well, we're going to show Tim Flock driving. What's he going to do? Like, okay, yeah, he wins the race. We had an audition. We put out calls for auditions, and we cast Nick Varner, who's an actor out of South Carolina, and he's actually he just was in recently the Francis Ford Coppola's Megalopolis, SNL 1975, and I think it's some Ava DuVernay stuff. So I was like amazed. I was like, he wants to do our movie. Like, I looked at his photos, I looked at his reel, and like I have to say, his audition tape, like, it's a really cute story. Like, we have this audition tape, and like he recreated the scene, because it's the scene where like Tim Flock wins, and so like he had his dad like be the announcer, and then his wife like handed him they found a trophy, and then like he like put like a NASCAR outfit on with gloves. It was really adorable. I just want to say it's been an amazing experience with all the actors, and our executive producer Grady Rogers, who's a legend into himself, but I know he took special, like he told, because Grady was quite close with Tim, and like had many conversations like with Nick on the phone, and then like the night before the shoot they went out to dinner and just kind of chatted about Tim. And one of my favorite moments is Grady actually gave a jacket that I think it's like a 300. It was something in the 90s, but he gave one of his personal items to Nick. Like, wow. I don't know, just that's how amazing of a guy he is. And he's so smart. I just felt incredibly lucky. I mean, I don't know, like one thing you've made films, and I guess you have experience with films, but filmmaker, like, you really like are in your, like, when you start a project, it's like kind of, you're like short-sighted, and like you don't, like, you're doing this because you want to do it, but then like as we were actually making it, it's like amazing how much like it affects people, and like how much like good it does. I don't mean to sound corny or but it was really great experience. It was a blast. And then we found another actor that we really liked, Jimmy Ace Lewis, who played, and we kind of like created, like, I was like, Jeff, this guy is really cool, he's a great actor, let's have him as the rival driver. And so Jeff kind of invented a rivalry. I don't know, so it almost had dramatic tension. It was kind of an it was kind of an improvised not last minute addition, but we kind of like figured out how we were going to film it. And then we found an actress named Haley Leary, and she was great also to play Frances. And I don't know, they're all very special to me, and it's just, I don't think I've ever had like seen actors that enthusiastic, and I just feel incredibly lucky.
Cool. So. Well, that's awesome, because just from the little bit of film stuff that I've done, the people you surround yourself with is so important. From everybody that's involved, can have such a big impact on the spirit and the vibe of things, and it could either make it or break it. If it's good, it'll get better. So that's what it sounds like. So that's really good to hear.
Oh, and our executive producers, Grady Rogers, who I mentioned, his granddaughter played the trophy girl, which I did not mention.
Okay.
But like I was thinking, I was like, as I was like planning, I'm like, we need a trophy girl. We need someone to hand over the trophy. And then we're like, let's get Grady's granddaughter, because he had mentioned like, oh, my granddaughter might want a part. And then we're like, she'd be perfect. She's like beautiful, gorgeous, and like, it was just incredible. Yeah, and it was fun finding her dress too. So
cool.
It's fun, all the costumes.
Yeah, I can imagine. So let's drift back to the family a little bit. You mentioned, as we were talking about getting ready for this conversation, Uncle Peachtree. Tell me a little bit about him.
Okay, so I've already kind of like gave a brief overview of who's who in the family.
Right.
So history of NASCAR. Most people, like, if most NASCAR fans know a little past Dale Earnhardt, maybe the 60s, 70s, but if you're like a historian, you know who Raymond Parks is. And like, Raymond Parks was a moonshiner turned team owner turned businessman in the 40s and 50s, but very few people know who Peachtree Williams was. Really, like, not a lot of racing historians even know that I've talked to. He's mentioned in Driving with the Devil throughout,
okay.
But it's interesting. So we moved to Georgia last year in order to do this project, and my mother-in-law Stephanie Norton and I like dove in with research because we wanted to know who this man was. And he's mentioned in like Tim Flott's books of like, so basically this is what we knew in a nutshell, is that Peachtree lived in Atlanta. He was the one to bring Carl Flock, the eldest Flock, to Atlanta to run moonshine from Dawsonville to Atlanta. Probably, like, we would later find out probably Florida too, but anyways. Peachtree died, let me put it this way, Peachtree died in 1929 on the side of a road in Florida. Family legend is that there were bullet holes.
Okay.
So let's put it in a nutshell. So that's what like is known is by the family and family lore. But my mother-in-law and I, we dove headfirst into researching who Peachtree was, and what we found was incredible. So first off, we looked at where his house was, and like, I don't know if you have any family stories, but like it's like kind of vague. Like my family story is like crusty old Jews from like New York that lived in like the garment district, and like kind of like, okay, not real. But then like we looked up Peachtree's house, and I was like, holy shit, like his house is in Inman Park in Atlanta, which I don't know if anyone is not from Atlanta. It's like it's pretty like these huge old houses that's currently being revitalized. It fell under a little like, I don't know, it was run down for a while, and now it's being revitalized, and there are these huge houses, and I found Peachtree's house, and I was shocked. I was like, oh my god, this is true. Knocked on the door, was invited in by the current owners, and I'm like, do you know who Peachtree Williams is? And they're like, we have some idea, come on in, let's have a beer and talk about it.
Okay.
And they're incredibly generous people, nice people, and so the house is amazing, and they renovated it, and it's an incredible house. We were later had a fundraiser party. The home hosts, the homeowners hosted a party for us. And it was incredibly generous. We had a great time. We had a 20s theme party. And also, I mean, I could do a whole podcast on this one, I'll keep it short, but also, so like, come to find out, we went to the National Archives in Atlanta. So the National Archives is like FBI, federal agents, just like any federal case, state case. We found 3 whole boxes of records about Peachtree and his wife. It was really funny. Like, so basically, he wasn't only into it was like not only the liquor stuff. It was like he was importing like whiskey from Canada. You know.
Okay.
Bringing it down. It was all the way from like Georgia to Florida. He had a lot of dealings with Florida. We found out. And then, like, come to find out also, like, he was evading the IRS for like $50,000 in 1924, which was like a huge amount.
Yeah.
He got away with it. They deemed him untouchable, like, because he would bribe, like, he would get caught and then he'd like bribe the jury, like, so he was deemed untouchable. Like, there's a headline, AGC's untouchable. And I want to say it was the first to employ red vote in like adulterating the car, because to non-NASCAR history people, the cars, like, if you ever drive in a Model T or a Model A, you realize they don't go very fast.
Right.
Like, like, when I actually drove in one, I was like, wow, this is so slow. So what they had to do is they had to make these cars faster. So Red Vote is like the first person to do that. And so Peachtree was the first patron. And yeah, so Peachtree, and then also we found out that his wife, who is always referred to as Mrs. L.B. Williams.
Okay.
Like, we're like, we don't know who that is. Come to find out, she was, like, I have a feeling she was very, like, involved in the dealings. But come to find out, she had an entire, I could go on, but I'm not going to. But she has an entire history of her own. They met in Columbus, which was, like, the Phoenix city of the South. Like, the Phoenix was, like, the Las Vegas of the South. It was Sin City. So they met, and she was a madam. She owned 2 brothels. She was involved in like a love triangle, like murder. Like, we found like a sketch of her in print. Like, she's like lounging, like very, like, I don't think I've ever seen a prisoner so comfortable. She's like lounging. There's this, like, it looks like a Gibson Girl sketch or something in like 1900. And then come to find out, she was actually Cherokee. And like, I talked to a racing historian, and they're like, you know, I talked about her last name, and they're like, oh yeah, the Cranes, because her last name was Edna Crane. Cranes are from around Dawsonville. So it kind of like was a full circle moment, but I feel like there's so much, like, part of what also drives me, and we will also have like, so in our short film, it focused on the 20s, we're going to have Peachtree and Edna. So they're going to be like kind of central characters, which I am super excited about.
Cool.
Because like, no, everybody thinks of the mafia as like, I don't know, Jersey, New York.
Right, the suits.
Yeah, so, and like, people don't really know about the Dixie Mafia. I mean, I don't think they were technically Dixie Mafia, because Dixie Mafia is like a little later. But part of what like really, it, you know, makes me motivated is like, no one knows about this. Yeah. And I think like, what better way to do it than a film, you know, because it's exciting stuff. So I don't know.
So let's also talk about Jocko Flocko. You've mentioned him a couple of times. For the people who don't know, go into it a little bit.
Okay, so Jocko. So I think if you, let me think. Okay, so Jocko was a rhesus monkey. Tim kind of adopted him in order to like in the middle of a race, like no one would know, none of the other drivers would know that Jocko was there. He kind of like stealthily like dressed Jocko up in like a racing uniform, put him in the driver's seat. I think like maybe in the middle of the race. So they probably put him in like, I guess maybe when they're doing a pit stop or something.
Right.
And then like, you know, the other drivers like would look over and then they see this monkey in the passenger seat and it would spook them out. And like, so it was like a tactic that Tim would use to like help him win. Right. But I mean, again, like we were talking about how like improvisational and like little rules are. This is an example. So I think Jocko raced about 30 races, and from my understanding, Jocko one day like got loose. He wasn't very, you know, like he got loose, unbuckled himself, got spooked basically, and then like got on his back, on Tim's back. So literally Tim had a monkey on his back and like almost crashed. And I think he didn't win that race. So no more Jocko. He was retired, and I think he went on the family. He was not he's not like killed or anything. He just went on the family farm. Okay. I hope justice to this story, but it's a legend story, and I think it's like even made mention in Cars 3. There's like a reference to Jocko Flocko. That's funny. It's legendary. So I think like if you Google Tim Flock, like you'll see Jocko.
Yeah, it's some documentary. I have two in my head where it could come from. And I think it was one of the Wood brothers that told the story of where before the race or after the race, Tim would keep Jocko in the pits with him. And everybody would come over and see him and da-da-da. And at one point, Jocko escaped. And he somehow managed to get to a local bar and do like, again, we're talking back then, do like a vast amount of money's worth of damage by the time they found him. It was either, there's Legends of NASCAR Reunion, which was they got a bunch of probably the next generation from the Flocks all in a room together to just share stories. It might have either come up there or they did like a documentary when Tim Flock got inducted into the NASCAR Hall of Fame back in those days. And I might be telling you things you already know, but when they were first initiating drivers into the Hall of Fame, they would do these half-hour, 45-minute documentaries on them. And they would play on the Speed Channel when the Speed Channel was still around. Now they're all on YouTube to be found. But yeah, the story of Jocko escaping and doing all this damage at a local bar was always pretty funny. And they had to go find him and all that. So yeah, they were pretty, like, such an impactful family on the sport. From Tim's success and his statistics, you know, I always had a proclivity to Fawny Flock, because he resembles my grandfather with that little pencil-thin mustache and the shorts. Or even having one of the first female drivers in the sport.
She was the second. Like, from what I understand, like, she was married to a bootlegger named Charles Mobley. And I think from family legend, she actually taught Tim, because Tim Flock was the baby of the family. Okay. And she taught Tim how to drive, which I think is pretty epic. Like, I don't know. And I think she stopped racing. I think she raced, I think it's like the only family to have 4 of its members in a NASCAR race ever. Okay. And I think actually Ethel beat Bob and Fonte in the Daytona 1949 race. So that's pretty cool. Yeah. But she stopped racing to take care of her children, which, I mean, it is what it is, but it was cool that she raced.
Yeah, especially then. Because I know there was a woman by the name of Sarah Christensen, too, back then, who was right around the same time. I'm not exactly sure if those two women ever raced in the same event together or not. But yeah, she was another name from back then.
I think so, because I've seen a photo of Sarah Christian, Ethel Mobley, and then I think there was a third woman. I hope no one hates me for remembering, but
I'm not sure either.
That Sarah Christian was actually the better driver. Like, she was apparently, like, all the racing historians I've talked to, like, oh, Sarah Christian, like, amazing driver. I think Ethel, like, she raced in, like, I think from my understanding, like, a couple of NASCAR races.
Okay.
But I don't know, faded out. But Sarah Christian, I think, and some people mentioned that she actually might have been a moonshiner herself, like a bootlegger.
Oh, wow. Okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, like, as to why this project speaks to me, I love that there's these, like, badass women.
Yeah.
That drove. So, like, any of your, like, people from the north and don't know NASCAR are watching this, like, I hope they understand why I love this project and why it's like I eat, breathe, and sleep this project.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can understand completely, and there's a lot of the things that you've been saying in our conversation are a lot of the reasons why I love the sport and why I try to pull other people into it. You know, because the history of it is so deep and so rich from so many different angles.
Yeah.
And it's endlessly interesting to me.
Yeah. And yet there's been, I mean, come to find out, like, you know, it's like kind of a cliche of like every independent filmmaker says, like, this has never been done before. We are the ones. But in a certain way, it's kind of true because, like, I mean, you look at like movies that have been made about this, okay, in the 50s there was White Lightning. 60s, I think there is some, it's escaping me now, but I know there's like The Last Great American Hero with in the 70s, and then there was Greased Lightning.
Yeah.
80s. I mean, there have been movies about this era.
Yeah.
But they're like dated.
Right.
Like, I guess like White Lightning is like of its time, but like you look at like the 70s, 60s, and 70s recreations, and they're like very like they have like sideburns and like hair. It looks very like 70s.
Yeah,
like,
it's
like Pam Grier was even in.
Right.
Like, she looked like it just was like, so like it's exciting to me that like it hasn't been done, and I know there's been attempts to do it.
Okay.
I know my secret, who I know there have been attempts.
Okay.
But not been done before.
Cool.
There have been big Hollywood attempts, but it just seems like a little bit ill-fated for some reason for lately.
Gotcha. I'm glad you're doing it. As you were listing films, it's not necessarily a NASCAR film, but it's one of my favorite racing-related films, which is from the 1920s pre-code era. James Cagney in a movie called The Crowd Roars.
Yeah. Okay.
If you ever get a chance to see it, it's really cool.
Yeah, definitely. We like watching old movies in our house, so yeah, we'll definitely check it out.
Cool.
But yeah, like the fun thing is like, I feel like this is just the beginning for us. As far as like we were talking about doing, so that we're gonna finish this short film, and then we want to make a feature. I want to produce like documentaries. We know this like incredible racing historian named Cody Dinsmore. He's very young and like unexplainably like interested in like at a very young age, like since birth.
Okay.
Like, stuff, and I mean, like, I don't know, I feel like we picked up so many historians along the way, and like I feel like some sort of documentaries do also, because I mean, I even want to write a book like about Peachtree. I've got enough research to like write like a nonfiction book.
It sounds like it would be great.
Yeah, so I feel like this is just the beginning.
Yeah, it sounds like kismet, this whole project.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
So what's your timeline now? Where are you guys at? When are you? I know all these things change, but when are you looking to have it out there for folks to watch, or do you not know yet?
Well, I'm working on that right as we speak. So so we had our first day of filming on June 22nd.
Okay.
Right after that, I got COVID, this like weird variant of COVID, and I was out.
Okay.
And like the bad thing is that I was like still wrapping up as a producer. I was still wrapping up loose ends, like returning the rentals and like paying people, and like this just was like, I was so sick. It was horrible. So like I recovered from that. I'm on vacation. Things have gotten a little delayed, and but we're hoping to launch a crowdfunding campaign for the rest of the money needed to film the short film. And we're also going to be meeting people. We're going to go to Charlotte in a couple weeks.
Cool.
Charlotte, North Carolina. And I don't know, we're just going to meet people. Like I feel like also like filmmaking, like large part of it is social media. Like I found great people, but like also like there's a large part of it, it's like you cannot underestimate like the importance of meeting people and face to face.
Right.
So I guess like we just have to keep on networking, like meeting people, getting the word out about our project. So we're gonna go to Charlotte in a couple weeks, and then we hope to like start filming sometime in late August, September, and then finishing up the film for festival submissions. I hope we make the deadline.
Okay.
I know, because like festival submission deadlines are like September.
Okay.
So that's our goal, but I think in the end, like if anything, we have this project for our community and a film, and I have like a lot of plans for like I want to premiere it at the flock, where the place where the flocks grew up.
Oh, that'd be cool.
A place Fort Payne, Alabama.
Okay.
And I've been there. We've been there 3 times, and it's like I've met with like the mayor and met like with a great man named Randy Grider, who's head of the art center there, and I really would like, my dream would be to like premiere the short film at the they have like an opera house.
Okay.
I would love that. I mean, I don't know how feasible it is with festival submissions, but I would love to do that. And like actually it's like one of my missions to like get like a star for the Walk of Fame in Fort Payne, to have like the Flock family. Like I even want like a mural on the wall of the Flock family. I mean, not to like say I'm by no means the only person furthering the Flock's cause. And like one thing I do want to add is like I'm not the first. You know, like I do have to acknowledge that there are other families who have been, other family members who have been also passing on the legacy. So I'm by no means the one and only person. And I've actually like Tim Flock, like we were talking about, like, you know, Tim Flock, such a like a legend, not only like when he raced, but he did so preserve this history, and like we have gotten a lot from his writings and his things that he said. So I guess like my mission is just to carry on that legacy and promote it, and in any way I can. So
yeah. As these people and these stories and this history goes further back in time, the more folks who are out there, advocating for it, the better.
Yeah, I mean, Jeff and I are millennials,
right? As am I.
South. But I see there's value in telling this story, and like it's a part of American history. It's a part of working class American history, and like also like women's history, women in, and also like showcasing the diversity of Atlanta, and like Peachtree and Edna was Cherokee woman, and like come to find out like it just was a very diverse place in the 20s. So there's just like so many like things that I want to convey to the world. So
cool. So where can folks find the crowdfunding stuff if they'd like to get involved?
So we're doing an Indiegogo campaign, and August, like it's like we haven't pushed the button as of this recording, but
okay.
Once I'm sure this podcast is released, if you wouldn't mind like posting a link.
Absolutely, not at all. I don't mind.
Accessible, but I mean, any donation helps. Even like $10, $20. It doesn't have to be huge. I know we're asking for a lot, but I don't know, just any contribution helps.
Cool. And where can folks find out about the movie and about the process? What kind of where can they find you?
Okay, so we have a website called thefabulousflocks.com, and I kind of, when I first put it together, there's a blog, there's like little bios of all the family members, and like you can see, I don't know, I just did it as like, okay, once this is over, I want something to be on the internet about the family. So we have the website, and then we also have an amazing Facebook group, which is where it all started.
Yeah.
Like overwhelmed with gratitude as to like the people we've met through there. We have Pete Wheeler, who's like a co-administrator with me, and he's been fantastic, like keeping it going when I'm busy. So we have Facebook, we have Instagram, we have Twitter. So if you just look at the Fabulous Flocks on any of those platforms, you should be able to find us.
Cool. Cool. Well, Allegra, this was really, really a pleasure to talk to you about the film and hear about what you guys got going on. I mean, I'm excited for it. And I'm going to do what I can to get this podcast out there for more folks to hear about it. Because, if it's, I'm into it. So I'm excited to see where you guys go, see the finished product, and follow along the way.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me, Albert. It's been so fun to talk about it, and I really appreciate your eagerness and support. So thank you.
Yeah, no problem at all. And thanks for giving your time this afternoon.
All right, great.
And thank you for listening to another episode of the Planet Shivers podcast. Thank you to Allegra for coming on this, which is episode 118 of the show. It was fantastic to have the conversation with her. I always am into talking NASCAR, and I'm always into talking NASCAR history. So this was fantastic and a lot of fun. And if any of you guys are even a little inspired, any of you listeners out there, go check out their Facebook page, Fabulous Flocks. Check out Instagram, Fabulous Flocks. If you wish to get involved in helping produce the film, please do. This is a great project. And like I said in the beginning, a grassroots film about a grassroots family. And that's the direction that art is going in. And we have to just keep it going. We're all in this together for each other. I wish them a lot of luck. And remember, you could find this episode and all the other episodes on all major podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple Podbean, and so on, as well as YouTube with video. If you're listening to the audio version of this, go check out the video version. Allegra and Jeff provided me with some footage, some stills, some old family photos from the flocks, a lot of good visuals on the YouTube version. Go check that out if you're not checking it out right now. If you are checking it out right now, you know what I'm talking about. You can find out more of what I'm up to on Instagram at Albert Shivers and at www.albertshivers.com. Thank you for listening to this episode, and until next time, take care of yourself and take care of somebody else.
There's Tim heading into the home stretch. And Brother Pontiflock congratulates Tim as he gets the checkered flag.